Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So for those of you who don't know, I was an exchange student and I lived in Texas in the south of the United States for a year. And one thing that was always a huge part of my exchange year was religion and going to church. And since I've been getting questions, I thought I would just make a separate video to talk about all of my experiences considering religion, kind of faith in general as part of the culture in the United States, especially in the South, and about going to church. Without further ado, let's get right on into it. So the first thing that I will have to say is that your experience surrounding religion will definitely depend on two things. First of all, your host family and how they choose to practice religion, whether they choose to practice it, whether they choose not to practice it, and how intensely they practice it. And secondly, where you kind of are. If you are in the United States, and especially in small towns, and especially in the south of the United States, you will definitely be confronted with religion. Most likely. It's very unlikely that you won't be. So in small towns in the south of the US, the number of people that are religious and that practice religion kind of on a daily or at least a weekly basis is pretty high. So you will get a lot of families who say grace before dinner, who go to church several times a week, and who will definitely just incorporate their beliefs in their everyday life. So that was also the case for me. So in my case, my host family belonged to the Church of Christ. That is a Christian denomination, as you can probably tell from the name. They were quite active in practicing their religion, so we would go to church 3 times a week. That was once on Wednesday evenings and twice on Sundays, on Sunday mornings and Sunday evenings. And on top of that, we would go to Bible study. So Bible study is basically a group that is kind of divided by your age. So we would all be kind of teenagers and young adults, and we would sit together and discuss certain passages of the Bible with a pastor. After that, you would then go to, you know, the normal church procedure and actually listen to a sermon and sing songs and listen to the story. So that would kind of be the procedure. So I would basically go to church on 2 days a week, but 3 times plus Bible study. That was quite a lot. I was not used to that here in Germany. We practice a lot less religion than that. So that was something that I noticed right away. And also, you know, religion would show in your everyday life. So you wouldn't curse. My host family wouldn't really dance. You wouldn't really say certain things. Like you wouldn't say God, you would say gosh instead of God, or just small things like that. I don't think they drank any alcohol, things like that. It would just, you know, really show in how they chose to conduct themselves and the way they talked and everything. I want to kind of stick to the in-church experience right now. So if you want to hear more about the other part of this topic that I just teased, leave it down in the comments below. I might make a video about that as well. But in church, what I think was quite interesting was that it is so different from churches I'm used to here in Germany and in Europe, because for us, churches are really large, really old, quite cold buildings, very traditional, obviously amazing to look at, really impressive, huge buildings. And church in the United States South, and especially the church I went to, was completely different. So the churches didn't look like the European churches. It wasn't like a huge old stone building with crazy high walls and a clock tower and everything like that. It was just basically a normal building, a pretty large building with a huge auditorium, and the preacher would actually use an iPad to give the sermon. So he would have a PowerPoint presentation and the songs would be projected up on those huge screens, and it would just in general be extremely modern. You will never find a preacher in one of the old European churches with an iPad projecting songs on the walls. The songs were much more modern, you know, there were kind of modern videos included in it or modern pictures. Some churches like use memes or whatever. So that's the first thing that you notice. It's much more modern. Also, other things I noticed was that, again, in comparison to European churches, the American churches were, or at least the one I went to, because I can't really speak for many other churches. I went to 3 churches in total during my entire time. They were all kind of like that, but obviously I can't speak for all churches. But the ones I went to were a lot more relaxed. So you will oftentimes find that in the church you will have donuts, you will have some churches churches have concerts in there, some churches have basketball courts, and you will play basketball in church, which is something that is totally unfathomable in any European church. But since they are modern buildings, you will have sports played in there. It's just much more modern and much more of a place just for the community to come together and to feel the sense of togetherness instead of just simply worshiping. Whereas in Germany, there's usually the church and then there's a community building, so it's separated. And in America, I feel like it's all kind of integrated into this more modern building, and you do a lot of things that you wouldn't do in European churches, for example. Because it was so modern and because it was, you know, such a place of community, I found that it was actually really, really nice, because first of all, it helped me to kind of have a routine and to have something to do on the weekends, so I wouldn't just sit at home on Sundays. It also helped me to create more of a bond with my host family, because we would always spend most of our Sundays together and kind of have stuff to talk about. We would always go to lunch after we went to church, so definitely helped me to kind of be integrated more into their family. It was also an amazing place to meet new people. I have formed some really cool friendships from church of people that didn't go to my school but went to the church as well, so that was definitely really, really nice. And it was just really interesting as well to just see how church works in a different country, and especially in the American South, because it is such an important part of the American culture. I feel like it was just such an integral part for me to learn about, and that was an interesting part in my exchange experience. What I will say is that you obviously as an exchange student don't have to go to church, but if your host family does go to church, I would definitely recommend you just try it out, check it out, and yeah, you might learn some really interesting things, because I would have never thought that a church was like that in the United States. So now I know, and I've made some really great friends there as well, so definitely a cool experience. What I will say though is that although it is relaxed in some areas and a lot more modern in some areas, it is also really strict in some others. So definitely ask your host family about the conduct, so how you should behave in church, what things you should and shouldn't say or shouldn't do. And also dress code is a huge thing. Do not ever go to church with your shoulders showing, with too much cleavage showing, with your knees showing, with any sort of like lace or anything like that. Some churches want you to cover your head, some churches don't. Some churches don't want women to wear pants. Some churches don't want you to wear jeans ever. So a general rule is to dress conservatively, to cover up everything, to dress somewhat formally or nicely. But these are all questions that you can ask your host family. I might also do a video about this on my channel as well, but it will depend on kind of the type of church you go to. But definitely also be aware that although it is a modern place and more relaxed than many European churches, the dress code especially and some other areas are also highly restricted, and so definitely ask questions so that you end up being really respectful. I know this might be like a controversial topic or a topic that people just might have a lot of questions about, so definitely leave all of your questions down in the comments below. I would be so happy to answer them. I know this is a topic that a lot of exchange students might not think about before they actually leave to do their exchange. I know I didn't really think about this at all before I left. It's a really interesting topic and definitely something where you can learn a lot. And so yeah, if you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you gave it a thumbs up, if you subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you always know when I post next. And that is all. Thank you guys so much for watching, and see you guys in my next video. Bye!